My name is Jason. I'm from Northern Crossarm Company out of Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin. We are a lumber treater. Everyone does lumber the same way. Everybody's been treating it the same way for a million years, right? You take your lumber, you stick it in the treating cylinder, you shove a bunch of water and chemical in there, pressurize it, pull it out, boom, Bob's your uncle, pressure treated lumber, right? Everybody the same way. We're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the steps that Northern Crossarm takes to do things a little bit different. We've taken that million-year-old process and we've tried to improve on it, all right? So we take that lumber out of the treating cylinder. Step one, we put it in a drying kiln, about 24 to 72 hours. Why do we do that? Okay? Sir, can you come here? Yep. Grab that board.
It feels wet.
Now, okay, so this is right out of the treating cylinder, right? I take it and I put it in the kiln. How's that?
5 pounds lighter.
So it's lighter, and if you look at the size, you can see that this board is significantly smaller than the green one, right? So we've taken that treated board and we've brought it back down to that 19% moisture. So it's roughly the same size, the same weight as it was before it was treated. Okay, why do I do that? What am I accomplishing by doing that? We just had a Trex presentation, right? What's one of the biggest issues with composite decking? It's the wave in that deck board. Exactly, the wave in that deck board. What is that the deck board's fault? No, it's not. It's you take this wet joist and you put it down and you put that deck board on top of it. Now once this board dries, it's going to dry. There's one guarantee about treated lumber. It's going to dry and it's going to shrink. All right? I have no idea by the time this board is done shrinking, I have no idea how much it's going to shrink. Is it going to shrink 1/8 of an inch? Is it going to shrink 1/4 of an inch? I have no idea. So if I'm putting that up and I get it all nice, all flushed up and pretty on the top, and I put that expensive composite deck board on top, and now I come back in 3 months, 6 months, and I've got to fix it. Why? Because now it's way down there and I got my roller coaster going on. If I take this kiln dried joist, which I've taken that moisture out of, it's a more stable product. I can put this down, and I'm pretty sure if I put it right there today and I come back in 3-6 months, it's going to be in the same spot, right? It's more stable. It's stable, it's lighter, and it's just easier to work with. I can tell you the job site I was on 15 years ago that my back went out on me because I was young and dumb, and we tried to carry as much lumber, and he's smiling because he knows where I'm going with this. We tried to carry as much as we can at one time. And we stepped in a rut because we all know that job sites are super level all the time. And boom, there my back went. I was done. If this kiln dried stuff was around 15, 20 years ago, I'd still be pounding nails. Chapter 1, we put it in the kiln and we take out all that excess moisture. Now, we're going to go to chapter 2 of our story and we're going to sort it. So now you look at a unit of treated lumber and you've all had units dropped off at your job site, right? What do you got, 20, 25% cull in that unit, roughly, give or take? So now we take that lumber out of the kiln, and what we do is we sort it. So we pull out all the boards that have twisted, have cupped, have cracked, all that. So now that unit that you're going to get that's going to go to your job site, instead of that 15 to 25% cull you're going to have in there, now you're going to have 2 to 5%. It's going to be more stable because as you let it sit in the sun, it's not going to go janky on you because it's already dry and it's already been sorted through. So the ones that were going to get squirrely on you, we've already pulled them out. So less cull. Okay? Chapter 3 of our story, we're going to go, you see this here is brown, right? Now we have 2 options with our kiln dried after treatment. We have green, we put it in the kiln, we pull it out of the kiln, we sort through it, put it in a unit, put a wrap on top of it, boom, shoobity-doo, down the road it goes, right? To the local lumber yard. Otherwise, we've got our brown option. We take that lumber, that same green dry lumber, we run it through a coater, which puts this brown coating on the outside. So as it's in the coater, you know, we got jets from the top, jets from the bottom, puts the even brown on there. The difference between our brown and our competitor's brown is they'll put that brown pigment in the treating cylinder with the lumber when they treat it. And then they don't dry it, they treat it, brown, boom, done. And you'll notice with that stuff, you like see a knot, and my knot right there, it's brown around that, right? It's all even brown color. If you see that green circle around that knot, that's what some of my competitors' brown treated lumber will look like. Why brown? Well, drive around, look at decks. How many brown decks are there? There's a ton of brown decks out there. So that's kind of why we went with this brown color. Now, we have at Northern Crossarm, this is our NKD decking. N for Northern Crossarm, KD for kiln dried, and decking, all right? We take a #1 Southern Yellow Pine 2x6. We bring it in, we run it through our molder. That's where we get the radius on the top, right? It's the same radius that's on that 5/4 deck board. On the bottom, we put 2 kerf marks. So if this board is going to cup, it is going to cup down into the joist. It is 1 3/8 inches thick, so you can span it 2 feet if you want to. And it is kiln dried after treatment. I'm going to stress that, KDAT, kiln dried after treatment. Why am I stressing that? Because this deck board that we've been using for a million years, when you put it down, you put it tight. Why do you put it tight? Because it's wet. Wet lumber is going to do what? We talked about it. Wet lumber is going to dry. So this board is going to shrink. This board is already dry. It's not going to shrink. It's going to move. Wood is going to move. This board is going to expand a little bit. So if I put 2 of those down tight, I'm going to have a problem. So we have our KDAT spacing tool. This is an official Northern Crossarm spacing tool. Put that down there. That's your gap right there between your 2 deck boards. Screw them down, go to town. You're good to go. You guys have that family, they want something a little bit nicer than this, and they don't maybe quite want to spend the money on the composite. You have a good third option right here. This is a nice middle of the road option. Now, since we're talking about deck boards, and we've talked about this is a #1 Southern Yellow Pine, okay? Guarantees with treated lumber. 1, I said I guarantee you the board is going to shrink. 2, I guarantee you a wood deck board is going to check and it's going to crack, okay? There's nothing I can do about it. There's nothing the owners can do about it. There's nothing you guys as contractors can do about it. It's going to happen. It's wood. It's going to move. It's going to check. It's going to crack. We have a clear sealer that we highly recommend you put on these deck boards. Okay? What it's going to do, it's going to help to minimize, not stop, but it's going to help to minimize that checking and cracking. It's going to help minimize that water absorption, which is going to minimize the movement of the board. And it's going to help to lock in this brown color to help it.
Is that brown color the only color it comes with? Is it stainable?
You can stain it, you can paint it, you can do whatever you want. When you get it on the job site, when the owners gets it in the yard, you're going to touch it and you're going to have a little bleed off on your hand. All right? That's because when it goes through that coater, it goes right back into a unit. It gets wrapped, it gets banded, and it gets shipped outside.
Is it coating the coater giving any action? Or is it just a color?
It's just color. So as this board sits in the sun for a day or two, that color is gonna lock in. It's gonna set. It's not gonna bleed anymore. But that day that you're building that deck, and maybe that day after, you do not want the homeowner to sit on that deck in her white shorts. because she will be very, very sad.
So, with regular treated, you have to wait a certain amount of time before you can paint, correct?
Yes.
And with this, you can paint it immediately.
Yes. So like he said, regular treated lumber, we have to wait. If we want to paint it, if we want to stain it, if we want to put that clear sealer on it, we have to wait till it dries out, right? This is KDAT. It's kiln dried after treatment. We can put that sealer on right away. So you don't have to worry about going back to the job.
So you have to seal the whole entire board then? Or?
Just stop. Once you put it down, you take it, and if you go to crossarm.com, that's our website, crossarm.com, you can go on there and we've got a short video that shows a guy putting the sealer on. You take that gallon of sealer, dump it in a 5-gallon pail, dip your brush, and you go over an area, right? Maybe dip it one more time, go over that area. 2 coats. We put the second coat on right away. So now I've just done that area. Now I'm gonna dip that brush one more time, I'm gonna shake it off real good, and I'm gonna do that whole area that I just did, and that's your second coat. The key being less is more. It's wax, water-based sealer. So if you get that on too thick, it's gonna not look good. It's gonna look white. Now as you put it on, as you pour it in that bucket, it's gonna look white, but when you put it on and you scrub it in with that brush, it'll go to brown, or clear, sorry, to the brown. And people say, well, it's too expensive. It's brown, KDAT, it's expensive on 2 folds. So if I take this wet frame and I build a 12 by 12 deck, okay? 12 by 16 deck. Just the frame. And I take it and I build the same frame in brown. I'm looking at $100, $200 more for that frame in the KDAT brown compared to the million-year-old fluorescent green wet. This I know is stable. This I know is going to shrink. This I know I'm going to probably have to go back and fix something. So it's going to cost me money down the road anyway, right?
How long you say your company's been around these days?
What's that?
How long you guys been using this?
This has been out for 7 years now. And we talked about, and a question I get a lot, and what we kind of talked about a little earlier was, okay, how long does that stay brown? There's stuff I've seen that's 6 years old that is still brown. This right here, this is a countertop display. Now I purposely, what color is this? Brown? What color? Brown? Okay. So this I purposely set outside at my house. It has seen 2 full summers and it has seen 2 full winters. Now I will, full disclosure, it's on the north side of my house, so there are parts of the day where it is in the shade. But I do move it back and forth. It sits some days in grass and some days on concrete. There are some days I forget where I put it and I run it over with my Jeep. So I can tell you, you can, if you go brown, you can at least one time drive on it with your Jeep and it will stay brown. Because I did it with this. So this is, like I said, 2 summers, 2 winters, it's still brown. Now, if I compare this to this is obviously darker. It's got a more richer color to it, but this is brand new. And this is 2 years old, being in the sun, spending its winters buried under 3 foot of snow, 4 foot of snow, because it's right where I blow my snow in the corner of my driveway. So that's the answer to that question of how long does that brown color last. All right, well, if you guys had nothing left for me, I'm going to stick around here. If you got questions afterwards, you can come and ask me. Otherwise, thank you very much.